All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 177. My guest tonight is Clayton Barton. He's been on the show before. I've been on his channel before. It's always a pleasure to talk to Clayton. One of my favorite people to have a conversation with. We'll see if we can keep this one under 2 hours. It's always a bit of a struggle. A lot to talk about with Clayton. And I'm going to be talking to him mostly tonight about his How to Draw Comics Academy. Developing your skills as an artist, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very important. And I find there's a lot of people that are kind of in the dark about that. They're struggling to figure out what they need to do, need to work on. Getting honest feedback, helpful feedback. Very, very important. Constructive criticism. And then also I find that there's a lot of people that maybe sometimes don't think they need any of that, and they just go and dive right into it, and they sit back and go, oh, I'll figure it out. This, I think, is the episode for you. So please, guys, give a big welcome to Clayton tonight. Before I do bring him on, let's see, the Elk of Antioch. Let's see, says the ancient Chinese wisdom thing was so easy to pull off in the 80s. Who's pulling off the ancient Chinese wisdom? Mighty Magic, what's up? This is Hail Chat. How's it going? Shrek PMC, what's up, Shrek? Hope you're doing well. All right, so before I do start and I bring Clayton on tonight, I do want to let you guys know the King Cryptid campaign right now. We're currently just 15 backers away. 15 from 1,000. Thank you guys so very much for getting us this far. So we're going to be there very soon. At 1,000, all the physical perk backers are going to get a bookmark. So that's the newest bonus on top of a pile of other bonuses for you guys. Those issues are currently being worked on and developed right now. One of them is completely drawn. Most of them are, I'd say, 60 to 70% done with the art. So things are moving along for that June, July fulfillment. Thank you guys. And again, you can go to kingcryptid.com to support that, or you can go to alternacomics.com/kingcryptid. And the Granite Beast figure is coming. The pre-order period will be starting on the 19th. That's this 19th, March. And will end on the 31st. If you want to get a glow-in-the-dark figure, make sure you pre-order during that time period because they will not be available after that. Hey, Killer Kovacs. How's it going, Killer Kovacs? Thank you for being here. We also got Death Metal Hero. What's up, Death Metal Hero? Luke, it's always good to see you in the chat as well. Speaking of some of my favorite people to talk to, Luke is also one of them. Spicer McLeroy. What's up, Spicer? Hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here tonight as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's bring him on, the man of the hour. This is going to be a good conversation tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Mr. Clayton Barton. What's up, Clayton?
Hello, Peter. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here and a privilege to talk to your wonderful audience tonight about drawing comic books. It's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, I just want to say this is a little bit off topic, so you'll have to forgive me. I digress a lot. But that Bruce Lee quote that you had at the beginning of the show, I literally posted that to my Instagram story timeline just last night. And I loved it because it's been something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. The ability to adapt. That's what he's really talking about there, I think. Being water, being able to fit into any situation or circumstance, live up to whatever shape you have to transform into in order to achieve the goals that you're setting out to create.
Exactly.
People are so rigid in their belief systems and the way in which they approach the various things in life that they want to tackle. But in the end, very little goes according to plan. And you've got to be able to just move around it. And figure out a way to make it work. So I loved that quote, and it's a
Yeah,
good little
it's
reminder. I was reminded of it just as we were getting into the show here.
timeless wisdom. I mean, that quote, it doesn't even just originate with Bruce Lee. I mean, he kind of popularized it, being the way that he was such a phenomenon at the time. But it's to be adaptive, to be flexible, to not necessarily change your goals, but to change your strategies and your perspective and how you attack certain things at a certain angle. Absolutely. And
Oh, totally.
I'm sorry, Elk of Antioch. Don't be a cynic. Says that it's not as profound as we thought it was. No, it's absolutely profound. It's still
I
completely
think it
profound
is.
and true. And it's very, very true depending on all the kinds of different things you deal with in your life. There's going to be all kinds of problems. That's just the way life is. All kinds of problems headed your way. No one's ever going to not have problems. And I've seen a lot of people lose their minds about trying to control life instead of trying to just go with the flow a bit, roll with the punches. Every cliche you could think of, and they're a cliche because they're true. And it's time tested stuff. Like you said, the whole fact that there's a lot of rigidity within our personal belief structures of what we can even achieve and what we're capable of. And once you can kind
Yeah.
of break free of that, man, you can accomplish a lot.
It's important to understand it because if you are a rigid person and it doesn't work out, it's more likely that you're just going to throw in the towel. But if you come at it from an approach where, hey, you know what? I'm just going to figure it out. It's going to be kind of rocky sailing in the beginning, but, we'll make a maneuver there and we'll navigate over here until we find our way. And I think that approach in general and almost everything in life is so important because I've been there, I've seen people, as I'm sure you have as well, Peter, where, one bad thing happens and they give up on this big dream that they had. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. There's so many ways to tackle a single objective. So if you can be like water and figure out what you need to become and what you need to be in order to manifest that which you're trying to bring into reality, then you'll be all set.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of at the core of what I want to talk to you about tonight because in order to be able to learn anything, you first have to even have the thought, the inclination, the motivation, the willingness to be in that position. And I think that's why we find a lot of people when they're kind of just like thrust into it, when it's just like, this is what you do. You go to school, you learn, you do this, you do that, the other thing. And there's a lot of people who feel like, well, that system or the things that I'm being taught or the subjects or whatever it is, they're not appealing to me. But maybe something else does and often does. And maybe sometimes that is dismissed. You're discouraged from learning those things, those skills, whatever it may be. But when you're getting students coming at you, they're not forced to learn. Then go down that road and go to your academy and learn the lessons that you have to teach. They're there. Do you find that there's an attitude there that is more consistent with that approach?
Definitely. I think that the kind of people who join the How to Draw Comics Academy, they're joining it because, let's face it, there's a lot of how to draw courses out there on the internet. You've got Udemy and Skillshare, and then we had our own courses on howtodrawcomics.net. But the How to Draw Comics Academy offers something that's a little bit different than that. It's more active learning. So if you're going to the academy, you're looking for that accountability because you're finding it difficult to find the time to learn drawing, let alone actually draw. But with the How to Draw Comics Academy, we've got live classes there 4 times a week and they're scheduled. And so just the fact that they're scheduled and that they're live, and usually it's at a time during the night where most people can fit it into their schedule, it makes it so much easier to commit. And so they jump onto the live class. They're there doing the work as the demonstrations are unfolding. They walk away from that class with something to show. And then we've got the community that's attached to the academy, built into it, by the way. It's not just another Facebook group, where they then take that work that they've done during the class and they post it to get feedback and critique. So it's like a full circle experience. It's all the things you need to actually get good at drawing. When you just hand someone a course, look, I'll tell you the honest stats. And I know this is crazy to say, considering that I'm somebody who's a course creator, but about 95% of people who buy a course don't ever finish it.
I
And
believe that.
70% don't even start them. And they've forked out money for these courses. And it's just because there's not that interaction with the teacher. There's not that accountability there. And so they invest this money, but they don't actually get any results from it. And, when you're not seeing results from the learning that you're supposed to be investing into, that's discouraging in and of itself. And so, sometimes I'll send out an email or I'll do a post on social media. I often like to do like little, going back to our Bruce Lee thing, I like to do motivational posts to get people inspired, light a fire within them, get them back to the drawing board, make them believe that they can actually draw the kind of stuff that they've always dreamed of drawing, because I believe everyone can. And what I hear so often in the comments is that, some people just gave it up. They threw in the towel. They hadn't drawn for years because they either didn't have the time, or they didn't have the guidance, or they simply, just thought it was too hard. They weren't making enough progress. And so the goal with the academy was to make sure that people were seeing that progress, that the learning was actually effective, and that their investment, which is, if you score one of the promotions, which is quite a small investment, is going to give far more of a return than anything else that's out there available for aspiring comic book artists. So yeah, people who are in the academy are committed. They're serious about leveling up their skill set and really becoming a professional comic book artist.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with that. If you don't have the attitude and the drive and the motivation to do that, if you don't even have the thought, if you don't have the belief, that's it. If you don't believe you could do it, that's it. You can't do it. Now, it doesn't mean that if you do believe you can do it, that you will do it and but you're done if you don't think you can. That's it. The other way, at least you give yourself a fighting chance, but it's great to hear that you're getting people coming to your academy, your classes, doing these things, learning. I'm seeing so many people out there who maybe they're lost. They don't know where to go for this stuff. Just looking at tutorials on YouTube without that, like you said, that without that interaction and engagement from someone to kind of guide them or give them encouragement or feedback in any way, shape, or form, they can just stop dead in their tracks and think, well, I got no way to tell how I'm progressing here, and sometimes people need that kick in the butt to get them going because they beat themselves up.
Yeah.
How much of what you're doing revolves around you being almost more like a life coach at times than an art coach?
Yeah, well, going back to what you were saying about self-belief, that's absolutely true. So when I was younger, my mum gave me this book that changed my life. It was when I was a teenager, called The Secret. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
And, The Secret was a pretty magical book. It put forth this notion that if you really think about something hard enough and you believe that it can happen, that, the Lamborghini is going to be parked in your driveway when you wake up the next day. And of course, we all know that that's not really how life works. Like, no matter how much you believe, you're not going to be able to fly. But that doesn't mean that you can't figure out a way to make it happen. But what allows you to do that is the belief that it can happen in the first place. And so there is some truth to The Secret, that if you visualize a goal and you believe that it can happen, all it takes is figuring out the path to getting there. But any goal can be achieved. There's plenty of proof of that around. There's artists that started out, like think about the heights to which you can get to as an artist and believe that it can happen, because there are definitely artists out there who started at zero their work sucked. We all start out as toddlers drawing scribbles on the page, and then you end up with someone like Mark Silvestri or Jim Lee, and they got there somehow. So the proof is there. They went from scribbles to Jim Lee level artistry. And this is a process that's repeated again and again by artist after artist. And so if you're sitting there right now thinking about whether or not you can become a professional artist, and you're looking at the work that you're doing and it's not quite up to where you want it to be, then the proof is there that it can be exceptional, that it can be absolutely out of this world if you take the necessary steps, put in the time, the practice, and the consistent effort to make it that way. But it can definitely happen, and it's important that you believe that, because talent isn't some mystical thing that some people are born with and some people aren't. Drawing is a technical skill like any other. It's very close to learning how to write,
Yeah.
It's just controlling the pencil. It's, of course, getting creative and being good at visualizing, but even those things can be practiced and enhanced. I mean, you read a fictional book, you're going to be picturing things inside your mind. Two people could read Lord of the Rings and be picturing very different realities of that, imaginary realities of that book. And that's imagination right there. And you can see it in your mind. And then if you know how to construct it on the page, then you can project it out into the world and show people what is inside your imagination. So I think belief is extremely important. It's certainly, there shouldn't be any doubt in the world. Like, there shouldn't be anything that anyone else can tell you that should make you believe that you can't achieve your goals. So, if you've got some naysayers there, as Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, screw them. Don't listen to them. Because the only reason that somebody is going to tell you that you can't achieve your goals is because they themselves have their own doubts about achieving the goals that they might have wanted to set out and accomplish. There's a lot of people out there with dead dreams that were never pursued, and if they see you going for what you want in life, it rattles them. It reminds them, oh shit, like, that's not fair. That's not fair that they get to that you get to go out there and achieve your dreams, but they had to give up on theirs because of this reason and that reason.
A lot of people want to define you with their failures.
They absolutely do.
They say that, what happened to me will happen to you. Everything is a cautionary tale. And it's one thing to be told, okay, this was my experience, and make that of it what you will, and, just take that into mind. But there's a difference between the individual that comes along and says, here's my experience, here's what I went through, and take whatever you want to learn from that. You'll end up learning more about that individual, of course, more than you probably will learn about yourself. But there's always things and bits and pieces to take. But when someone comes along and everything is just, well, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do the other thing, that's because you're listening to someone at that point who all they've generally done is constantly tell themselves what they can't do. And now they're telling you and trying to convince you of the same. It's like the kind of thing of misery loves company and hates solutions. Because you ever notice that with people sometimes that they're such in a miserable rut with themselves or whatever it may be, that they'll often have people who are so kind and creative and trying to offer up solutions, and they don't want solutions. They want to be upset. They want to be mad. They want to be miserable and brood and and not move forward with something. It's puzzling, but it's that kind of frame of mind. You can't. You can't do anything like that about it, and you have to let people kind of work their own stuff out. I've definitely had my fair share of experiences as a publisher trying to motivate people, and I've learned over the years you can't necessarily motivate people, because in some way, shape, or form they're already motivated, and you're either kind of pushing them along and reigniting that fire that's in them, or they're tuned out because their motivations lie somewhere else. And that's the part where I find that with people, that at certain points you have to say, okay, you know what, we just got to part ways. Because, you're trying to, they're on the floor, with their hand up, and you're trying to reach them with the hand and help them up. And instead they want to pull you down. And that's when you eventually have to go, I got to move on.
That's exactly it. Yeah, misery does love company. That's very true. And you somewhat have to avoid people like that, unfortunately. And it can be tough because sometimes they're your partner, sometimes they're your family, sometimes they're your friend. And they can be the biggest disbelievers in what you're doing. And you've either got to be very good at ignoring them, or you've just got to see them less. Because otherwise you're not going to achieve your dreams either. You'll be stuck wherever they've found themselves.
Yeah.
And you only get to, the way I think about it, and I hate to be morbid, Peter, but we really do, as far as we know in this life, it's finite. And we've got, one path from being born to the deathbed to do what it is we really want to do. And so it becomes a matter of how do you want to spend that time? Because you've got a limited amount of time. Do you want to spend it being unhappy? How much do you want to spend being unhappy? How much do you want to spend having regret, wishing you had done certain things that you didn't do when it's too late? And then how much of that time do you want to spend energized and happy and passionate, pursuing what it is that truly fulfills you, even if it's not like financially successful, or it doesn't become the epitome of what you had hoped it would become, but just being on the journey of making it happen.
Yeah.
That is, I think, guy back in the day, Earl Nightingale said.
Oh, yeah, Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, I loved his stuff. The pursuit of a worthy ideal is success in the end. So it's the pursuit that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. When we're setting these goals and we're going out to achieve them, I think it's great. I kind of try to live by dream big, goal small. And so my dreams are huge. My dream of comic book making is the equivalent of this. And I've said it before. I want every possible living person to read the comics I make. Now you're probably thinking, like, Pete, that's billions upon billions of people, many of which you will never possibly meet, have no desire whatsoever to read a comic book, probably don't even know what a comic book is, and will never know what a comic book is because of depending where they live, who they are, what kind of situation they're in, whatever it may be. I don't care. I want every single living possible person ever during my time on this planet and beyond to read the comics I make. And so I don't stop. I'm not going to stop until that's achieved. Now, you're probably thinking that will never happen. Well, that's the whole point of me dreaming as big as that. Because the goals that I then need to achieve, that I need to set, those have to be broken down into so small of pieces to just do step by step, incrementally, one at a time. And it doesn't matter. The point of me doing these things isn't necessarily to achieve the dream. It's to achieve the goals. The dream keeps me present. The dream keeps me motivated. Because, you get things happen, right? And, you feel kind of discouraged sometime. But then you stop and you rethink about, well, what is it that is motivating me? Why am I doing this? Why does this matter? What is my dream? And you get back to it. And you realize not everyone has read this book yet. I got to get out there. And it's that level of dreaming big about it. And whatever anyone's dream is in terms of that, it doesn't have to be my dream, doesn't have to be something huge or tremendous, but I like the idea of people that are kind of setting something in small, tiny increments to achieve greatness, because it's never the big thing. It's never the big grand gestures. It's always the smaller stuff. Doing it really well, consistently.
That's it. Just because you have giant goals doesn't mean you can't have milestones that are pretty exceptional from the outside. And that's why I think it's great to have huge goals. Set very big goals that you truly believe will happen with enough time and persistence and dedication. Because little goals aren't going to motivate you as much. They might be more realistic, but they're not going to be. It's like the difference between, let's say that you're a treasure hunter, and you might set the goal to find one treasure chest on some island, and maybe that's enough for you. And that's kind of motivating, to set out on a voyage to find that one chest of treasure. But what if you find an entire cave full of treasure? That's much more exciting, and you'll look far longer and for something like that than you will for one little treasure chest. So I know it's probably like a pretty janky metaphor, but yeah, big goals are really important. They are so important. I've met my goals before, and it can be a very bittersweet experience, because you meet the goal, and meeting the goal never lives up to the expectations that you have for what it's going to feel like before meeting it. And then on top of that, you're also left trying to figure out what to do next. It seems like if you set a giant goal, you've got a huge fuel tank to get you there. But the moment that you meet it, that fuel tank runs out, and you find that you get a massive crash in energy and motivation and inspiration. And, well, I guess many people experience burnout, really. I know that that's what it's been like for me. If my goal was to create a course, cool. I spend 6 months creating a course. It's done. I never feel like creating another course again. That's it. I'm done. And then I take, a month or two off because I'm so burnt out. Or, I release a comic book, and I still don't think I've recovered from Kozor fully yet. So, my goals should have been bigger. Should have been to start a comic book company, release a series of comic books, and then get other people on board to like get enough funding together to hire other artists and other storytellers and start a comic book company. That would have been a goal that lasted me a much longer time than releasing, crowdfunding one comic book. So don't set realistic goals, because you will meet them, and that's the problem. It's kind of the problem. If you aim for the moon, then you'll fall among the stars, right?
Oh yeah. And everybody, this is going to be an episode full of a lot of cliches tonight, so just deal with it.
Oh yeah, and bad metaphors.
But I do like the aspect of what you're talking about, where you do have these big aspirations that you want to kind of plot out for. And I find that that's a big problem with sometimes people getting maybe confused about it. I've certainly been confused about it over my life, where you go into something and your goal is actually what is the byproduct of you achieving your goals. So people, if they want to be, let's say just on a simple level, they want to be happy or they want to be wealthy. Well, that's not necessarily, that's a byproduct of you achieving those things. So how will you go about doing that? So in comics, to bring it to this specifically, I've seen a lot of talk all the time about like saving the industry or saving comics or whatever that means, but never really much talk about working on storytelling, working on art, designing characters, breaking down themes, making sure that we get a page done today, making sure we get our books done today. All these different things that you do them consistently for a long enough time, and who knows, you do it well enough and it resonates with enough people, and maybe you do look back and go, wow, saved comics. But that's a byproduct, and it's a byproduct of doing something consistently well and making sure that you're putting yourself in a position to do that, to be able to achieve that. I think it's very discouraging for a lot of people. I've known so many where they set the goal as the byproduct, and they don't have any kind of roadmap to lead them other than the feeling, the emotion of that, because they fall in love with that. It's like a honeymoon phase for them where it's just romanticized, and then they fantasize about how this will be and what it'll be like to have that and achieve that, but they never come down to reality enough to go, okay, now I got to do the work to make that and manifest that reality that I'm fantasizing about. Instead, reality hits them face full in the face, and they go, oh man, this is tougher than I thought it would be. I didn't dream or fantasize it to be like this. This is grueling. And then they give up. And then especially if the immediacy of the results aren't there, because they don't give themselves a long enough time to meet some of these goals. And then the discouragement kicks in. And once the discouragement kicks in, the resentment kicks in, the entitlement kicks in, the jealousy kicks in. And then they see other people that are out there achieving things, and they go, well, they must be some other, something got handed to them, or they don't deserve it, or, and all of a sudden you start tearing others down, trying to build yourself up. And it's a dangerous and often tragic path.
It is. Yeah, it's really simple. If people wondering why the comic book industry isn't doing as well as it used to do, just take a look at the writing and the artwork in general. At least in my opinion. I know that the artwork was never perfect, but it sure as hell used to have a lot of energy and a lot of passion put into it. And the writing, the writing wasn't necessarily top of the range either. I think, like, give people the best of everything when it comes to comics. I know it's just comics. People think it's just a comic book. I wish I could think of it as just a comic book. I'd probably get a lot more done then. But yeah, I got to remind myself sometimes, shit, it's just a comic book, man. But, it's clear that the backers don't think it's just a comic book, because they back a comic book and, man, they are not going to forget about that thing. They are going to be waiting for it, and it's going to be in the forefront of their mind. Like, it's not just a comic book to them. It's something that they've invested in, and it's something that they want to read, want to experience. It's not just a comic book. So I would say that one of the biggest things you can do if you want to stand out, and it's not very hard to do it these days, is to create or hire someone who can create it for you, top of the range artwork. And if you want an example of what top of the range artwork looks like, check out what Jim Lee has been doing lately, or Mark Silvestri. Check out what they were doing back in the day with Conan Savage Sword, Alfredo Alcala, and Buscema. These were the guys who were true craftsmen. And if you want a simpler style, look at Michael Turner and J. Scott Campbell. These guys had style, and they had energy, and they had life to their artwork. And I look around, and I don't see a lot of it these days. It is a seriously dying art form. And I don't know at what point along the way it became about getting it done, not perfect. But I don't know. I think it should be done, and pretty darn perfect. Like, it should be 95% good to go, because the rush jobs that I see out there, and just the whole idea, the whole philosophy of done not perfect, I think is polluting people's minds and giving them a terrible mindset. It's
what
actually
I think it is? I think it's a confidence issue.
It could be a confidence issue.
I think there's a reluctance to trust what you're doing. People are so heavily referential in writing and art. Everything's got to be like this whole, I need all the little things there. I can't draw it out of my mind. I can't just make up something in the story. Got to reference it, got to backtrack it, got to compare yourself with others, got to compare yourself with what's come before, got to constantly keep, and they get, I think, so neurotic about it, and the confidence ends up getting lost instead of just going for it. You know, like when
Well,
a referential is great to look at it and get inspired and go, okay, that's what I do and that's what it looks like, and get the character right or whatever it may be. But if you can't just kind of then cut loose and trust yourself with what you're doing, and you never develop that skill, I think you go down a really weird path with that.
well, you need both, right? Like, it is good to reference what's actually working, what people, like, what audiences have really loved and engaged with in the past. So you got an example there. Definitely work toward it. You've got to believe that you can achieve something at the same level. It doesn't need to look the same. It just needs to engage people on the same level. And yeah, have the enough confidence to learn how to get there and then actually gain those skills for yourself. I do think that maybe some people are jumping into it slightly too early. Look, you're going to learn a lot making a
the
comic
other part.
book.
You finished my sentence for me.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the
I
other
didn't
part.
mean to do that.
No, I was hoping you would. I was hoping you would. I kind of
We're
thought I was
twins.
leading you to it. Yeah, I was like, he's gonna. So I'm not gonna say it unless he's. I knew it. I knew you would say it. But yeah, that's a big part of it, and that's what I think is also kind of cutting off the development of confidence, is because they're not growing competent enough through learning. They're rushing into it.
Yeah, the other big problem is that they're not open enough either to critical feedback. It's crazy, Peter, because I have come to discover that, and I have no idea how far stretching this is, but more and more I find that the bar of expectation is significantly lower for most of the people than I ever thought it was. The level to which people seem to think the bar is at for performance is not where it needs to be. It needs to be up here somewhere, because the market is going to decide in the end. You know, whether or not someone hires you to do their artwork, or if you release a book for yourself. We're talking about the indie scene here, but even in the mainstream, we've seen it. The market speaks. It decides what's good and what's not. And so, you know, you can put out your artwork, and if it's not up to par with what the audience is looking for, if it's not going to leave an impression on them, then they're not going to fork out money. Or if they do fork out money for the first issue and it's not what they want it to be or what they expect it to be, then they won't buy the second issue. And so it really is important to get your art to an undeniable level, I would say, where it could sit next to anybody else's comic book and it would stand out by miles. Because, yes, us creators, we're working together, we're helping one another get our books out there, but at the same time, our books are sitting next to each other, right? They're all sharing a gallery on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and some books are going to look better than others, which means, you know, if you want yours to be the one that people see and hone in on first and foremost, then the art's got to be brilliant, because that's the seller, right? That's the pretty packaging that it comes in. And then you want to make sure the story is good if you want that continuity, if you want people to keep on jumping on to your series. And you want them to stay around for the second, third, and fourth issue. And so I really think that, people may not be as ready as they think they are. And, you know, I see people promoting their services and that kind of thing. And whether they're artists, whether they're writers, whether they're, colorists. Oh my goodness, colorists. Don't even let me get started. Some of the coloring out there is absolutely, it's been making me depressed lately, because some of that coloring actually kills the beautiful line art that some of the artists are creating.
Where are the values? Where's the tone? Where's the color theory being implemented?
Where's the color theory, right? I mean,
basic stuff.
Yeah, just really basic stuff. And that's what I mean. Like, go back and look at how they colored Witchblade. You know, go back and look what they were doing with the state-of-the-art digital coloring back in the early 2000s. Especially the Image guys, you know. Look at how they colored Spawn, and the way in which, so I'm going to give everybody a tip right now on how to make their colors instantly better. And I'm going to say it because so few artists actually do this. You look at the page and it's colored, but nothing stands out.
Yes.
It's a flat rainbow of color. And so the way in which you make things stand out is by remembering that the background color is not necessarily the color that is shining onto the subject. It's not the primary light. The background color is the backlight. So if the background color is blue, that means it's making a blue backlight. So you can give the character a blue rim light if you want, but the main light, make that a complementary to the blue. So you might make it an orange or a yellow. And I tell you what, the contrast that you'll create there will cause that character to pop right off of the page. That's all you need to remember. But, you know, some people get trapped into the mindset that, oh, the background is this color, which means everything has to be that color. Yeah. And then nothing stands out.
Or there's a literalism sometime I see that gets put across with the coloring especially, where every single thing must be colored as to how it literally would look. So the emotion doesn't come out in color. We're not worried about framing what's in the foreground so it pops and it's effective and it's dynamic. It's more about this capture everything the way it's supposed to look. And so by doing that, because you're not in a kind of space where you're taking a photograph or you're making a realistic portrait painting or landscape painting or whatever it may be, you're creating comic art. You're creating something that by the very essence of it, it needs to have hierarchy. It needs to have a composition. It needs to have a focal point. And you need to have every single thing, the coloring, the inking, the lettering, all of it needs to frame
everything.
Focal point. And so the eye line is there with everything drawing you to where you need to go. And if you lose that and it becomes this sameness where everything is on the same kind of scale or it's literally being interpreted at all points in time, you lose the drama. You lose the dynamism.
Dynamism, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that the other big problem that's happening here, the huge component that is causing all of this lackluster standard to occur, and I'm sorry to be brutal, because that sounds really harsh. We need lackluster standard, but man, like in comparison to what I would expect from myself and Corey, because I'm always giving Corey a hard time, my brother, about his level of performance. But yeah, it's there's quite a low standard out there. I'm at a majority, but there's some very amazing artists. You take a guy like Rob Willis, right? Like independent artist, very, very talented. Now, I'm not sure how fast he is or how well he can work under pressure and what his scheduling is like, but at least in terms of the quality of his work, super high quality.
He did the cover.
Yeah, there you go.
It came out on a Wednesday, number 16.
Freaking perfect. Look at that. See, that's what I'm talking about. And that's the kind of thing, man, you see that sitting on a shelf next to any other comic book. I'm a kid. I'm going to pick that up first. For sure. I would say Shelby Robertson is another really cool artist. Obviously, I have a preference of style there, but yeah. And I think that the reason that there is this lackluster standard among a majority of the art that's out there, and even the writing, because, hey, I think artists can be really good writers, because they're imaginative, they're creative, they're making stories in their head when they're creating an illustration. They probably love visual things like movies and video games, which all have narrative incorporated into them. They're thinking about that stuff. So I think artists can be great writers. But writers and writers in general, I think they could also get their stuff up to speed. And I think the reason that many of them don't is because they are just not open to feedback. And it's crazy because I don't know how someone has the confidence, you might even say the hubris, to think that they can have a valid opinion on their own stuff without any outside input. Because how do you know if your stuff is good? It's almost like if yeah, like how do you know? Like, I don't know if my stuff's good. The only way in which I know my art is good is if I put it out there and people give me a bad reaction or they give me a good reaction. And before I put it out, I often ask half a dozen people what they think and whether or not there is something I could do to make it better. Because I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I got my opinion on it, but fat lot of worth that is.
What I think a lot of that stems from, man, there's so many points tonight where I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm like, I want to say this back, and then I'm like, I get sucked into the next point you're making.
Yeah, no, I'm
so
sorry.
many good
I'm
points
sorry.
tonight. It's okay. It's okay. So
down.
if I do try to interject a little bit here and there,
Do it. I'll let you.
I'm gonna. But with this in particular, I really think a big part of that has to do with there's a lack of analysis and study on what they even enjoy. So you know how you're mentioning all these different artists, these different styles, these different things that you enjoy that are like the pinnacle to you.
Yeah.
That you're constantly trying to aim at, that you love to see others try to aim at as well. Well, what your pinnacle and standard is going to be different than someone else's.
Totally.
But it's important, and obviously, yes, you understand that. But what a lot of people, I think, when they get into this stuff, they fail to do is they cut off from being a fan and a reader and become so full tilt into being a creator that now they've almost, maybe subconsciously, there's a separation that occurs. And they never think, I have to go back and study. I have to go back and keep pushing myself, keep learning. A lot of the things that will help you with writing have nothing to do with writing. They have to do with studying psychology, studying philosophy, reading up on biographies, reading up on history, just all these different things that will help you to flesh out story and narrative and character in a believable and a resonating way. And there's a lot of people I find where they go, nope, I don't have to do any of that. And it's very apparent that they don't even look back at what they enjoy. And one thing that I really notice where it stands out like a sore thumb is people who will letter their own comics. Because they're not going back, and I'm guilty of this when I started off. A lot of people are. You kind of go into it and you're just doing whatever you're doing and you're messing around and you're making it. Now, if you've been doing this long enough, you should be able to then self-edit. You should be able to go back in there, see what you're doing, what you need improvement on, based on what is your standard, what is your pinnacle, what are you aiming for? Because if you're aiming to just only do self-improvement with no frame of reference, with no standard, no idea of what you're shooting for, your progress and what you're going to achieve is going to be markedly less than if you have an idea and a concept of this works for this reason and why. Because I'm seeing a lot of people when I'm talking about lettering and things like that. Lettering is one of the easiest things to look at, and at least on a basic level break down what goes here, what goes there, why does it look like that, why is it placed like that, and how to do it somewhat effectively. But I've seen so many things over the years as a publisher with submissions where it looked like they couldn't care less to get the lettering looking even anything approachable to acceptable and easily understood. And it is one of the easiest things within comics to reference on what works, how does it work, and to ape it, to imitate until you develop your own sense of composition in terms of lettering. So if there's a lack of that, if there's a lack of you wanting to actually constantly be in a mode of self-assessment over and over again with what am I doing, what's working here, what's not working, and then let me look at what I would consider to be great. What do I love about this comic? Why do I love this writing? Why do I love that character or this art or whatever it may be? Analyze that, study that, really, and write it down even. What do you enjoy about it? What resonated with you? What speaks to you with this story? Or even a book or a film or whatever it may be. Why do you enjoy this thing so much? Write it down. So many people just kind of, I guess it just speaks to me. and they don't really actually go through the thought analysis. And if you want to be a creator, if you want to get stuff out there and have success with it and have it resonate with people, I think you really have to get in that mode of analysis.
You do. Yeah, and remember that you want to get into that mode because, yeah, you're creating your own idea. It's your creation, and that's all good and well. But at the same time, you want to be making a good product for your audience, for your readers. And part of making it a good product is presenting it in a professional way, and that goes for some of the standards that have been laid out previously for comic books. Ideally, you want to try to follow those. If you're doing something wacky, something a little crazy, well, you want to be making sure that you're still executing that well. But okay, sure, you can do that. But otherwise, stick to the basics, what makes a comic book work, because it'll make it more readable. It'll make it make sense. But then, yeah, things like the lettering and even the gutters between your panels. You know, sometimes you'll see a comic book page and they'll be all over the shop. So there'll be gutters that are this wide and other gutters that are that wide. It'll be really small, and it's just, it leads to a worse experience for the reader. So you want to make sure that your comic book pages are as polished as they possibly can be, that you've developed a solid style. And you don't have to be a perfect artist in order to create a comic book. You're going to learn along the way. You're going to get better. But make sure that you're definitely trying to shoot for the sky when it comes to your work. Don't just be getting it done to get it done, because somebody told you that it's much better to just get it done instead of perfect. You know, don't rush it out, because no one will buy it, and it won't stand the test of time either. You know, there's certain comic books out there that'll be treasured forever, that'll be looked at decades from now by generations and generations of people. You know, fathers will pass it down to their sons, and you know, people will talk about it.
Yeah,
and that's how
it's
Image
legacy.
took off as much as it did. Image took off because of comic books like Spawn and Youngblood and Wildcats. You know, people saw those books and they fell in love with them. But then there's also the stuff that, as I said, the greats worked on, like Buscema's work, and that stuff is still treasured till this day. But how many comic books are out there these days that you're going to be treasuring and you know, keeping close to your heart? There's not a whole lot of them.
To your point as well, in terms of those 90s Image books, they hooked you, they drew you in, but a lot of them didn't keep you, because it was that level of that self-reflection, that assessment that needed to take place to get that narrative and that story and have characters that resonated. Yeah, sure, superficially they look cool, you know. It was if you were into that style and that time period especially, and those creators, they were printing their own money when it came to that level.
Oh yeah.
But the train eventually stopped very abruptly once it became that the superficial part of it, the art, the imagery, was far more important than crafting a story.
Yeah. You got to have both. You have to. The story is as important as the imagery when it comes to comic books. It's like a good video game. You can have amazing graphics, but if the gameplay isn't there, then no one's going to play it for long, because visuals wear off pretty quickly. You know, there was some issues of Spawn, a lot of issues of Spawn actually, where I got bored, even though the artwork was amazing. And eventually I stopped reading it. So, you know, it's one of those things where you want to be giving people a really riveting experience when it comes to your story, when it comes to your comic books. And that means you've got to be good at a lot of different things. You've got to study narrative and watch plenty of movies and note down what was it about that movie that hit me, that connected with me so much. I say movies because, and look, certainly it's important to state that comic books aren't movies, and that they are a very different and separate medium, and that you've got to use the tools available to you in comics to take full advantage of what it has to offer. But there's still a lot of commonalities in terms of camera shots and lighting and the way in which
the story
pacing happens.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you got to study that stuff, and you've got to be very, very analytical of it. Get books on this stuff. Framed Ink is a wonderful book to read up on because it'll teach you how to compose your shots, how to bring focus to the subjects within your scene that you really want to draw the audience's attention to, and things like exposition. You know, when I was writing Borok, my comic book, I'm not a writer. You know, I can think that I can write, or I can actually do research on writing. So I jumped into a lot of courses on writing. I went and did a few courses through the Masterclass website. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
You know, they got R.L. Stein on there. They've got Neil Gaiman, and who else have they got? You know, they got lots of screenwriters too. So I looked at a bunch of their stuff. And whenever I wanted to do something within my comic book, like introduce a villain, or talk about, or like present the hero of my story in a certain way, I would look it up. I'd say, how do I introduce a villain to a story? And I'd do a ton of research on it, because I don't know. Like I can think that I know, and I can do my thing, which is uninformed, or I can go and educate myself on that particular facet of the story that I need to implement. So yeah, you know, the amazing thing about being a human being is that you can learn anything and get really, really good at it, but you've got to put the time in, and you've got to be very open to accepting that knowledge, believing that it can work for you, and then, you know, synthesis, you know, making sure that you absorb it properly and put it into action.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff over time you're going to kind of learn through osmosis and repetition and all these other things. But that's where people that go, well, practice makes perfect. No, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. You know, you want to make sure that you're practicing in the right way, and that you are reinforcing those habits. Because if you're just reinforcing bad habits over and over again, without any kind of course correction or self-assessment on any level, you can practice that all the time. It's not going to get you anywhere good. There's a lot of different things that come into play with that, but that is a really big thing. You mentioned the fact that, you know, you felt like, okay, writing, I'm kind of in the dark about this. I gotta do my research. I gotta do my due diligence. You know, art seems like that was more of something that you were drawn to and worked at and put that same level of time and commitment.
For sure.
And you built that up. But now you're realizing, like, oh, here's some of my other shortcomings. I got to really build those up. And that's an important thing. That's such an important thing, you know. And if you don't want to do that, and you got to get someone who can. So there's a lot of people out there, with, especially like you talked about with art. So in your academy here, when you've got people that are learning and graduating in some way, shape, or form, are you finding that they're able then to go into the virtual workplace of freelance and whatnot in comics with greater ease than others who seem to just dive right in with no preparation or skill set that's comparable to what you're delivering with the people that come your way?
I can certainly see that they will be able to. Now, the academy has been open since November, so, you know.
Oh, holy smokes, man! Really?
Yeah, It
feels like you've been doing this for a while. I'm seeing so much content of what you're putting out there. I thought this was like 2 years easily.
Oh no!
Kudos
How to Draw,
you, man.
How to Draw Comics Academy How to Draw Comics.net has been around for a while, but How to Draw Comics Academy launched in November last year.
Oh, okay, wow.
And so, of course, that's not enough time for an artist to go from zero to master.
No.
But the idea is that it'll speed up their learning curve significantly. It'll help them to rapidly level up faster than they could outside the academy. I mean, that's the whole reason I created it. You know, it'd be a waste of time otherwise. So it's that kind of close and intimate learning with them. It's an intimate learning space and you've got your comic art comrades that are there too. So it's not just you that's learning. Like, we've got a live chat in these live classes. It's actually done through StreamYard, but it's built into the Academy. So it's kind of similar to this. You're watching the demonstrations unfold, and at this point, I have become familiar with all the students in the Academy, and they become familiar with one another as well. So we're really creating this amazing and inspiring community, because let's face it, learning together is much more fun than learning by yourself. And when you're seeing others improve, that it's working for them, it just makes you believe that it can work for you so much more, and that it will work for you. So, and then, we do these once a week, we do these huge feedback and critique sessions. So that's me going through everyone's work who submits it to the feedback and critique section of the How to Draw Comics Academy. This is actually one of the reasons why we'll have to close the doors to the Academy eventually, just because we'll have, I want to be able to spend as much time as possible on each student individually and give them the attention they need. So I've got a finite amount of time to be able to do that, which means we will have to close it off at some point. So get in there while you can. But it's amazing because those feedback and critique sessions go for like 4 hours sometimes, because we delve so deep on the nuanced aspects of these artists' work that can be honed in on and improved. And so just imagine that for a second. As a new artist, that things that you needed to work on, the mistakes that you were making that were completely invisible to you because you just don't have the experience yet, are pointed out. And so you can't unsee them now. When you can't unsee the mistakes that you're making, it means that you're going to avoid them the next time around. And that you know what to focus on, you know what to learn in order to make the greatest strides in improvement. See, that's the thing. That's what causes someone to learn slowly as opposed to learning quickly. When you're first starting out, there's so many things that you don't know you're doing wrong. There's so many things that you don't know that you're supposed to be doing right either.
Yeah.
And so that's why having that second pair of eyes, that perspective from other artists that are more experienced, but also, somebody who's well versed in teaching this stuff. I hate to toot my own horn here, but it's kind of what I do. Not toot my own horn, but teach this stuff to people. And I've had a lot of experience. It just wasn't teaching in howtodrawcomics.net, wasn't doing online courses. I taught in multiple universities and TAFEs here in Australia for a long time, for about 8 years. During my 20s, jumped right out of uni and into how to draw and into the teaching in TAFE and university as a teacher, teaching things like character design and whatnot. So up there, if you go to learn more, if you scroll up and you go learn more, that'll take you to the Academy page, and that has a bunch of information on there on what you can expect from the How to Draw Comics Academy, essentially. So there's a lot of stuff. But yeah, when you get somebody there who can point this stuff out to you, it makes you so much more aware, and it enables you to be able to learn much, much faster. So this is the kind of feedback I give to people, honing in on stuff that you just wouldn't have thought to have even begun jumping into. And down lower, you can actually see some of the comparisons of where people started and where they got to, even within it just a week. This is one of them. So this was Edge. He's one of the members in the How to Draw Comics Academy. After one feedback and critique session, he took the first piece of art that you see there, and he turned it into the next one that's sitting right next to it. And you can see
that
how much more dynamic it is. Yeah. And that's something that you see across the board, is that, same with this one, you see that the second one is so much more dynamic and interesting to look at. You got something flying into the foreground there, the batarang. You've got a much vaster background happening, much more dynamic pose. And it's just, it took the initial idea, the initial concept for that piece, and it took it to a whole other level.
Fantastic stuff, man.
Yeah,
I love the fact that
really incredible.
And this is you're a rarity among this space. I want you to know that you're someone who can talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's why I feel like it's, I'm going to tell you something, Peter. There's a lot of people who probably wonder, Clayton, if you can draw so good, why haven't you got more comic books under your belt? Why aren't you spending your time making comic books? And it's because I can sit there in my studio for 8 hours a day and I can work just by myself doing my own comic books just for me. And that's cool. Like, that's fine. That's a life worth living, right? You get to do what you love. But I just don't get fulfilled by that. Like, I would rather take the skills that I would be using to do that and teach them to other people. I'm a teacher. Whenever I learn something new, I just can't help but ram it down somebody else's throat 2 minutes later. Like I gotta tell them about it. If I discover something new, something exciting, I can't keep it inside. I gotta tell somebody about it. And so all this ability that I have, all this talent, whatever it's worth, I got to hand it off to other people. I see somebody taking a particular approach to the way in which they execute their art. If I can see a way in which they can do it better, man, I can't keep my mouth shut. I've got to give them some guidance. It's just in my nature. Just ask Corey how annoying that is. And so, yeah, that's sort of why howtodrawcomics.net came about, and why I just wasn't content making comic books alone. I've done that. I've done illustrations on my own. I've done plenty of commissions and stuff, and I find it really relaxing. And I love, if life was like, I could make life that simple. It would be a very simple life to do that. Rather than running a how to draw comics business, but editing, and teaching, and structuring lessons and whatnot. But the thing is that I had this epiphany one day when I was deciding, okay, Clayton, you can only really focus on one thing, because it's the truth in life. Unfortunately, there's many dreams that we have, but we can only really pick one and make it work. And I was choosing between really committing myself to comic books and becoming a comic book publisher, making my own comics, or building howtodrawcomics.net and making it the epitome of what it possibly can be. And I chose How to Draw Comics because I thought, listen, if I can teach other people what I do, and they take on board that knowledge, and they become really, really good at it, maybe even surpass me, the Jedi Padawan becomes a master, and they go out there and they make more comic books than I ever could myself, then that seems like a much more worthy use of my time and talent. I've got this teaching ability too, which is another skill set, so I may as well use that.
Oh yeah.
And with the advent of AI art, this skill that I'm giving to people is going to become it might become extinct, right? It's going to become a rarer and rarer craft for people to practice. And so I feel like I've really got to do it. I've got to go out there and I've got to make sure that it's passed down to the next generation of artists, and hopefully they'll learn from me and pass it on to their next generation after that, and they'll keep it going, because there's already techniques and approaches to creating comic book art that have been lost to time.
Yeah.
Especially, old ways of inking, old ways of coloring.
Lettering, hand lettering, that's practically extinct.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and these artists, they die. So you can't really ask them. You can't get them to do you a tutorial or coach you. And so the idea of building out the How to Draw Comics Academy library, and let me just show you as well, let me share my screen with you, because I can show you inside the academy.
Sure.
So people know what to expect.
While you get that prep too, I want to comment the fact that what you're talking about, being a teacher, the greatest teachers are great communicators. So you could be unbelievably talented. You could be at the pinnacle of whatever it is that you're doing. But maybe you really can't communicate it that great as to what you're doing, how you're doing it, and break it down so that it's learnable. Or maybe you don't have the attitude and mindset to be a coach. Maybe you're
Totally.
too impatient with people. Maybe you don't have those communication skills that you need.
Hmm.
So I really think it's an invaluable service, man. What you're doing
Yeah.
is it's so important. It's so
Thanks, man.
important, and I can't stress that enough. So let's see what you got here.
Yeah, so this is the inside the How to Draw Comics Academy. This is the first time I'm revealing it to the outside world, by the way. The only people who know about the Academy and what it looks like on the inside are the people who've signed up to it. So this is the dashboard when you first sign in. And right at the bat, you've got your fundamentals lesson for beginners. Got this cool like Netflix slider thing where if you want to start with the fundamentals, you can scroll through the lessons. By the way, these have been put up since November. There's about 3 new lessons coming out every week. They're live, streamed live at first, and then they're uploaded to the Academy library, the Academy program in general. You've got the previous workshops and courses that I've done in the past. Those are up to 8 hours long or more. Probably much longer than that, honestly. I think that the Heads and Faces workshop was about 10, 16 hours, something like that.
Wow.
Then we've got comic art demonstrations. So you got the fundamentals, you've got that underpinning knowledge, but then if you want to see how to actually execute a full-blown illustration, we've got these ones here, and there's plenty more demos that I'm going to be uploading there. We've got new live recordings, and then down here, we have a full Academy timetable, and it might be a little hard for you to see, but you can see the upcoming lessons that we have just this week. So tomorrow we've got multi-point perspective, building perspective grids off of your idea. So we're really onto the perspective at the moment. Drawing entire environments. Got a feedback and critique session at the end of the week. And then drawing characters in perspective. We've got drawing mechs and weapons in perspective. And then we're going to have some lessons on foreshortening. And that is just this month, by the way. Next month, we're going to be getting into some anatomy stuff. And let me, by the way, this is the recent community boasts, so we can jump into the How to Draw Comics community in just a minute. But let me show you where we're headed. This is the Academy Learning Program, right? So all the lessons that I do live are uploaded to the Academy Learning Program. And this is a structured, you can think of it as a giant structured course. When you first sign up to the Academy, this is what you get access to. We've got beginners, intermediate, advanced, and then you've got resources. And under beginners, we've got the beginner topics. We've got fundamentals, figure drawing, anatomy. And so we're actually filling a lot of this out at the moment. You can see we've got basic form breakdowns, perspective. Yeah. We've even got an entire lesson. This goes for an hour or two on just line quality. So working with lines, working with shape. You can see that's just not a regular shape tutorial either. I actually show you how to sculpt it out, complete with line weights. And then we've got figure drawing. We've got a bunch of figure drawing lessons in there already. And all of these libraries that you see here, they're just going to constantly continue building up. Got a bunch of head stuff there from the Heads and Faces course. And by the way, let me show you what happens when you click on one of these. It's I'm not sure if you can see. Oh, it doesn't show you because I'm sharing the Chrome tab.
Separate window type of a thing.
It opens a separate window, yeah. But basically, what happens is I've got these videos hosted on a super fast. You could think of it as a video server, so it streams straight away, no matter where you are in the world. So it's a very, very fast loading. And you don't have to download it to your hard drive and spend a bunch of time doing that. You don't have to spend a bunch of time trying to wait for it to load in the browser either. It just starts up straight away as soon as you click on it. But here's the other thing that I'm really excited about is that later on, and you can see this says coming soon. That's because week after week, we're going to be going through each of these lessons live and then uploading them to the program here. But we're going to be covering character design, environment design, creatures and monsters, and then we're going to get into advanced stuff, going to get into inking, coloring, style development, and sequential storytelling. So,
Wow.
the list goes on. We've got resources. So we've got a bunch of references here. So if you're looking for anatomy reference for your female characters or your male characters, got some proportional charts. And we've got brushes as well. So we've got brushes, tools. It's got references here. Got brushes. Okay, so these are the brushes I actually use in Clip Studio Paint and Photoshop. These are free, by the way. Then you got tools. So these tools are invaluable for comic book artists. PureRef, perfect tool for organizing your references and saving them out as giant canvases that you can open up later on. Then you've got figure study practice. So this is another great resource for practicing up on your figure drawing and making sure that getting those 30-second figure drawing studies in each and every day. And then did you know Photoshop CS2 is actually free now? So there was this crazy thing that happened with Adobe where their, license key somehow became invalid for everybody. So now it's just free, right? So you can actually download that. You can just click here and you can download it legally, and you get Adobe Photoshop CS2, which does everything that pretty much all the other Photoshops do. It just depends, because your computer may be so super and beastly that maybe Photoshop CS2 doesn't run on it anymore, but because they don't update it, right? But still, that's Photoshop CS2. You can actually use it. And we've even got a book list that I've been starting up. So we've got Framed Ink there so far, but I got Masters of Anatomy that I'm going to upload here as well. So yeah, I got the live classroom. Okay, I'm going to take you on a little tour here, everyone. We've got the live classroom, and you can see that this was the last video that we did in the live classroom.
Wow.
This was a huge feedback and critique session that we did, where I went through a bunch of people's work. You can see here that I'm actually showing this student how to compose one of his panels. Got another one. Oh, that was me taking a break.
Recognize it. And you know,
let me fast forward a little bit more.
Describing that with the
so you can see how I actually
too.
do draw-overs of your work. And I show you how you can improve it and make it look more three-dimensional. So you can see this little reconstruction of the pose up here. And how it actually looks like the venom is now popping even further forward out of the page.
And we'll get
got more of that dynamism going on.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was sort of straight up and down. There wasn't a whole lot of movement within the body. And so I show these students how to do stuff like that.
Anything in there?
Showing some rendering techniques here to this student. His name's Rex. Very talented artist. Talking about form and how to control his hatching to achieve varying tones.
Well, we can see.
Okay. So yeah, and this was a really valuable one. So this was another student who had a bunch of pages that were sequential, and I was just talking about how he could improve the storytelling aspect of his narrative. Really amazing stuff. Then we got the Academy Vault, which is very similar to the Academy Learning Program. So I won't bore you with the details of that, but it basically just has everything we've uploaded thus far. Courses, demonstrations, feedback and critique sessions. You can see that we've done plenty of those. And then finally, let me show you the community forum. So this is such an amazing place, right? Because you've got people here, dedicated artists, who are super inspired and super driven to learn, and they're here sharing tips and tricks. They give me suggestions all the time on how to make the Academy a better place. That's why it is becoming so good, thanks to them. We're sort of building it together. And yeah, so you could click on any one of these, basically. Look at this artist, Wendy. Wendy is just absolutely killing it in the Academy. She's got these amazing foot studies that she's been doing.
That's
so you can see that people are really committed, and they get comments from other artists who are, there to support their growth, support their learning, cheer them on when they're doing great, and help them out when they're running into trouble or having some challenges.
You're essentially offering like college level courses here, if not beyond in some cases. How much is it to join the Academy?
So to join the Academy, right now, it's $54 per month. But let me tell you a little secret, because there's actually a secret code that is still active, still valid. I think it might be Comic Art Master. Is that it? Let me see. Yeah, cool. So if you me see here. Use the secret coupon code Comic Art Master at checkout, and you'll actually get 75% off of your membership, recurring. So that's a
What?
lifetime discount. Yeah. So that means you'll maybe pay $10 to $15 per month, depending on where you live in the world.
Wow, man,
And
that's
that's recurring.
incredible.
So that's every single month until you decide to unsubscribe, and you get access
it,
to all of that.
Is it like all caps, no spaces? How is there any kind of
Yeah, it's
constraint on
all
that?
yeah, it's all capitals.
Okay.
So Comic Art Master, all one word in caps, and you'll get a 75% discount on your membership. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's a really killer deal. And like I said, if you are a comic book artist who is serious, so obviously the reason I made it $54 per month, and people are signing up at that rate, by the way. And I know that the people who are signing up at that rate are serious. So use that coupon code if you're serious about leveling up your skill set and you're really committed to your comic art. Take advantage of it now because, as I said, the doors to the Academy aren't going to be open forever. I will have to shut it off at some point because I've only got so much time. It's impossible to, eventually, if let's say the Academy gets 1,000 members, there's no way I'm going to be able to give 1,000 feedback and
Yeah,
critiques
you're
because
gonna
I'm
need
spending half an
instructors
hour
coming
on some of
along and,
those.
helping
Yeah.
you out.
We have got some guest instructors as well. So that's the big next stepping stone for the How to Draw Comics Academy. So what you see here, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what the Academy will ultimately be. I'm filling out this library myself, but eventually there's going to be a guest instructors tab in that Academy vault. And that's going to have people like Peter in there talking about how to publish your own comic books. It's going to have people like, I hope to get Shelby Robertson at some point, talking about his approach to inking and rendering. It's going to have, I had a guy jump in just recently, Sean Ellery. Many artists know him from back in the day on the various comic art forums that were around. He was a colorist. And I looked at his coloring. I said, man, you are one of those rare people who still know how to color. So I need you in the Academy right now to teach a class on this stuff. And we actually did that. I'm still editing the lesson right now.
Wow.
So you can get access to it. And we also had Dean, Comics Mate, who was talking about designing monsters. So we've had him in. And then another guy called Carl Marchant who was talking about setting up shots. So there's about 3 instructors I've had in so far, and I plan to get more as the Academy budget grows. And we're just going to build this thing out. And I want to get top tier instructors who have incredible talent, who can express and show what it is they do best to students who want to learn this stuff. Eric Weathers would be another perfect one to get in there to teach about lettering, so that you'd know how to letter your comics. Michael Bancroft, I thought about getting him in there to talk about pre-press and making sure that your comic book looks really nice and polished looking once it goes to print. There's a lot of ambition I have for the Academy, and I've sacrificed myself to it. It's what I plan on doing for the next 20, 30 years, making it into
It looks incredible. It's very comprehensive, man.
Thanks so much,
Holy smokes. I thought you were going to say something like $200 a month.
man. Really?
Only because there's people who are paying thousands upon thousands a year to get lessons that aren't even coming as close to being as comprehensive as what you're putting up on here. And I'm not saying, hey, go out and charge even more than what you're doing right now. But for anyone that's even questioning, if you think that you're not going to get your money's worth on this, this looks incredible. Especially
Thanks,
if you
man.
use that coupon code. Holy smokes!
Yeah, Comic Art Master.
Yeah,
It's for the Comic Art Masters out there, the future ones.
and like you were showing before with the examples of the improvements that people are making after receiving feedback and critique, that's so important.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
it really resonates with me too, what you're talking about in terms of how you feel really fulfilled by being able to help people out, kind of sharing your knowledge and that kind of a thing. I definitely feel the same in terms of that. That's
Totally,
why I
man.
love having these kinds of conversations. I love doing the shows that I do, explaining the ins and outs of various aspects of comics and whatnot, and even the feedback forum type show that I do. So I really get
Yeah.
where you're coming from, and I think it's an invaluable resource. What you're doing is incredible, and I hope you're overwhelmed with people signing
Oh
up for
yeah.
this in the days, weeks, months, years to come. And
Lem-
wow,
yeah, for sure. And let me tell you something as well, Peter. It's if you're feeling that little twinkle in your heart about passing your knowledge on to other people, when you dive into that, it's going to be so worth it. Like, I can't tell you how good it feels when you've just finished a lesson or a feedback and critique session where you've gone over somebody's work and one of their comments pop up in the live chat and they tell you, man, like, you just transformed my art. Like, I can't even believe what it is I'm capable of now. It doesn't even look like my art. And
oh
you
yeah,
know that the words that you have to say, as much as you might take them for granted, they truly have a lasting impact on those that you tell them to. You know, like, your knowledge has power. And I feel very insecure about my teaching. I'll be right up front and say, yeah, like, I hate every lesson I do. I'm never satisfied with it. But then when I hear from the students who have just gone through it with me and how much value they got out of it and how impactful it was, it makes it worthwhile setting aside my ego and just putting it out there, putting it up there and making sure that it's accessible to people. Because, you know, in the end, if it's helping them, then that's all that matters. Doesn't matter how I think I'm coming across.
absolutely, absolutely, man. I can't.
Yeah.
What you're saying right there too, it brings me back to years ago. I used to teach art workshops at local libraries, and the kids would probably be between the ages of like 10 or 12 to 16, 17. And I would try to individualize it for each kid with what they were drawing, go around the room, help them out. And the first thing I would do with all of them, I would tell them that, to do a sketch, do a series of quick sketches. I would have pencils with no erasers on them. They'd all be freaking out in the beginning. And I'm like, no erasers. I'm like, just draw. Don't worry about trying to make something perfect. Just get what's out onto your paper. And after doing the 3 minute, the three different sketches, probably 10 minutes per each sketch, they would then work on a full, complete drawing based on the sketch that they liked the best. And all of these kids, by the time that they were done and they did that full drawing, they would have about an hour, hour and a half to do the full drawing based on the sketch. Every one of them just amazed by what they were able to accomplish because they just kind of
awesome.
developed in such a short amount of time that confidence and trust in themselves that they didn't really have at first. Because so many of them would go for the eraser immediately, because I would have erasers in the middle and I'd be like, don't use the eraser, and they're like, well, why are they there? I'm like, they're there to remind you not to use them. And don't go, and some people go, why don't you use a pen, because there's something about the pencil that makes you feel like, oh, it's okay, I can make a mistake. And I want them psychologically to be in that mindset of, it's okay, you can make a mistake, it doesn't have to be
Totally.
perfect. And just go with that, develop that trust in yourself. And I love the aspect of what you're doing with this stuff too, and helping people out right there, giving them critiques and feedback on their art and their drawings. And man, just incredible. Comics for Life says, who's the artist on this piece?
Yep, the artist on this piece, so the line art is mine, and then the colors are Sean Ellery's. So we teamed up on this one. This was he colored this for the demonstration that he did for the lesson in the academy that I brought him in on.
Oh, very nice.
How cool is that? Yeah.
That is cool.
So you can see how this one was colored up if you join the academy.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, Comics for Life says, great piece.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, this one was fun.
And thanks, World at War Comics. Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate that. Now, we got a couple questions here in the chat.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Rachel, I'm going to remove this for just a quick moment. Rachel says, if you have some skills, do you have a way to structure your course to match someone's skill level? Also, how much will this cost? So you did mention it before, but you can feel free to mention it again.
Yeah, sure. So if you have some skills, do you have a way to structure your course to match someone's skill level? So, as you saw, Rachel, just with the little walkthrough of the How to Draw Comics Academy, what you are asking there is what the Academy members were asking for inside the Academy. That's why I incorporated the Academy Learning Program and categorized all the classes that I was doing into beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then into subcategories, and then put them in order so that you could start from the very beginning of your drawing journey and take every lesson that you needed to get a solid foundation in drawing, leading up to the more advanced stuff, where you were then starting to think about, okay, how am I going to start telling a story with my art? How am I going to compose a comic book page with panels and whatnot? So yeah, there is definitely a pathway that we are fashioning here with the How to Draw Comics Academy. Right now, the live lessons, they're all focused on the fundamentals. And all those fundamental lessons are uploaded to the Academy library in the learning program and put according to their category in order. So if you're a beginner, you'll be able to jump in and you'll know exactly where to start. If you're a little bit more advanced, then you can get right into the intermediate, straight up. How much will it cost? For most people, outside of this stream, it's going to cost them $54 a month. For you, if you use the secret coupon code Comic Art Master, then you can get your membership for a lifetime discount of 75% off. That means every single month, your membership will have a 75% discount. So it goes from being $54 to $10 to $15.
Incredible, man.
I think it's about $15 maybe.
See, Comics for Life says, what is the overall reaction to modern comic storytelling by your students as far as how things are nowadays, and has learning the skill changed the way they view them before getting into your school?
Yes, I would hope so. So there are, I've got to be honest with you, there was maybe one student who I gave feedback to, and he couldn't accept the feedback, and he really needed it. He really did. So he was creating comic book pages that had various mistakes within them, that if he had have taken on the advice and he did exactly what I had told him to do, it would have been a game changer. But he couldn't accept the feedback. And that's why if you scroll down in the sign-up form for the How to Draw Comics Academy, I say, do not join the Academy if you cannot take feedback. Because he couldn't take the feedback, right? And so if you take on the feedback, yes, here's what's going to happen. When you join the How to Draw Comics Academy, you're not going to be able to look at comic books in the same way again. You'll be like Neo, seeing through the Matrix. Okay, you're going to look at a comic book page, and you'll know exactly why it does work or it doesn't work. Because I'm going to give you all of the mechanics that sit behind a working comic book page. How to vary your shots, how to make it interesting and dynamic, the kind of shots that are going to so the kind of panels that will be most suitable for the shots that you want to present within them, that kind of stuff. How to make your comic book flow. In other words, how to make it readable so that the viewer's eye naturally travels from one panel to the next.
So important.
And I'm not just talking about the basic stuff that you see out there on Google either. I'm talking about, advanced techniques that I've learned along the way. So they're from my experience, and they're the ones that I've found have worked most effectively. Because I actually do come at it from a cinema photography viewpoint. I can't say background because I've never made any movies, but I really do like to incorporate a cinematic feel to my comic book pages. That's why oftentimes I really love to do fun things like, instead of just creating like a flat horizon line for my scene, I'll tilt it. Because as soon as you tilt it, it looks much more dramatic. And it's just simple little tricks like that that can make all the difference. And also when you can tilt the horizon line so that it's funneling the viewer's eye right into the next panel, well, that helps to increase the flow and the seamlessness of the storytelling throughout your page too. So do they see comic book pages differently after they've been in the academy? Heck yeah, they do. And so overall, what is so the modern day storytelling, the way things are these days, and that becomes almost irrelevant as well, because it doesn't become about modern day storytelling or the way in which stories used to be told or anything like that. It just becomes about what is the most effective way to tell a story, because there are modern stories that are effective at giving readers a fantastic and memorable experience.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a common thread between stories that are told really, really well and leave a lasting impact, and stories that just do not hit the mark. They don't hit a chord with the audience. And it's these mechanics that I really want to impart onto anyone who's part of the academy.
Oh, yeah. So important. Captain Goodnight says, great show. Clayton, please let your advanced students know where to find the submissions page for It Came Out on a Wednesday. So that's Alterna's anthology.
All right.
That would be cool to see some of that stuff come through. I can't say that it's a guaranteed acceptance of a short story submission, but at least I know that they're coming from a place where they're learning something solid.
Well, I hope that someday the Academy does have a significant enough reputation for that people who have been inside the Academy can go out there and use it as something that is, when they tell people who are thinking about hiring comic book artists that they were part of the How to Draw Comics Academy, then those creators know that those artists are coming from a great place, that they're coming from a place not just that taught them the skills they needed to execute the job required, but also the mindset. They were given the right mindset, because that's another big one that I try to instill in the members there.
That's
so important.
Everything. I literally made a tweet today about how great attitude will take you further than great ability. If you have both, you're practically unstoppable. But there's a lot of people I've seen over the years. Man, they're talented. Yeah. They got the ability. They've worked on that. But the attitude, not so much. The mindset, not so much. And as soon as there's obstacles that come in their way that deter them, distract them, maybe discourage them a bit, oh boy. It's the blame game. Yeah. It's everybody else. The resentment that builds, and it's because they're coming from a place of this ego-driven kind of entitlement attitude. And the mindset is not a mindset of belief in success. They're approaching their creativity from a different angle. And it's a shame when I see that happen. But then there's people that are not as talented, but their attitude's incredible. The mindset is incredible. And they achieve more success. And they drive those other people nuts.
Oh, they do. They drive them crazy. Yeah, the blame game is a brutal one because it seems so entrenched in some people. And the unfortunate part about blaming everything outside of yourself for the reasons that you haven't seen the success that you're looking for is that it takes away your power. That's why I blame everything on myself when things go wrong, because then at least I can fix it. If I'm blaming somebody else, then they're the only ones who can fix the problem.
Exactly.
Right? Because if they caused it, it's just a waste of time blaming things on them. When if I go, okay, I screwed up. How did I screw up? Where did I screw up exactly, so that I can then amend that particular portion of my approach. And it's just so much more powerful to take the blame for yourself. You know, people think it's a terrible thing to fail, or to be wrong, or to take the blame, but it's not. These are the most powerful things that you can do to succeed in whatever it is you're setting out to achieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why even I got tired of hearing myself blame the distribution system in comics. And eventually it just hit a point where I'm like, I don't need to be in the distribution system. I can take the accountability on things myself instead of being beholden to a system that I feel is constantly letting me and those that I publish down. I can instead get out of that system, build up my own system.
Exactly.
And then that's now I can control that. That's a powerful situation to be in. But if I constantly am in like this headspace where I'm a victim all the time. Oh, the industry's doing this to me. The retailers, that's how that is. The creators, that's how that is. And never once thinking, I'm the one that's putting myself in that situation, though, time and again. You know, so it really is. It's something that to take ownership of that and accountability. It changes your whole world. Your whole world. And I've been
does.
And striving to do a lot more of that, especially in the past couple of years, where I'm just like,
that's awesome.
I got no one else to blame but me. And I know that might sound like, oh, you're beating yourself up. You know, other people, they do this. Yeah, true. They got no one else to blame but them, too. But they're not living my life. I'm living my life. You know, so I can't constantly say, well, let me surrender my decision-making to everybody else. And then wonder, well, why do I feel so powerless and helpless and confused all the time? You know, it's because I'm not living my life. I'm letting other people live it.
Yeah.
So it all begins with that. Another great
100%.
question here. Comics for Life says, do you test your students on how to get a mindset to meet their deadlines? In other words, improving their speed and so on?
I don't test them. I talk about the balance between moving quickly and reaching their deadlines, but doing good quality work. So there's a really great saying that the Navy SEALs use, and it goes along the lines of...
Get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah, but also slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And basically what that means is if you do it the right way the first time, then you'll get it done much quicker. And in other words, you have to take your time to get it right, and it'll go quicker in the long run. And that's what I find. You know, when I try to rush my work and meet a deadline, I screw it up. There's much more of a chance of me screwing it up, having to erase, having to course correct. But if I just take my time to get those foundations down, even just the foundations, everything's smooth sailing after that. It's like, cool. Like, yeah, it took a little longer than probably somebody rushing through, but at least I know now that I've got some solid foundations. I can just follow the blueprint and it'll be done. It'll be so simple. Rather than getting lost and having it overly complicated, take the time to get it right. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It's a great philosophy to take on. And in the end, you have to ask yourself as well, why did you decide to become an artist? Was it to put out conveyor belt product, you know, just to get it out there? Or was it to create something that you can respect, that you can be proud of? Because if you just rush your artwork out there and you don't really care about the quality as much, then in a sense you're disrespecting it, and it's going to have an impact on, like, it's going to create bad habits for you.
Yep.
And it's going to have an impact on how you see yourself as an artist and how you see your work. And so if you want to, so here's the thing, if you put in the work and you do really, really good art over and over again, through repetition, you'll get faster anyway. And it might take you a very long time to get to that point. But if you don't take the time and you continuously rush out, well, it's just like Peter was saying, that you can practice doing the wrong thing over and over again for a very long time until it becomes impossible to change. Like if you've rushed your artwork your entire life and put out substandard, mediocre stuff, it's going to be it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to somehow get into the mindset to put more effort in, because you just won't be used to it. You know, you'll be used to getting it done in 3 or 4 hours, when there are people out there who are taking, you know, let's say 2 days to do a page, but that page is significantly better than yours. Are you going to have the patience to sit there and do what they do? Are you going to have the attention to detail necessary to be able to pull it off? Are you even going to know what to do or what to look for in order to be able to achieve that? Probably not, because you haven't been through or put yourself through what they've been through. At this point, I'll tell you something. I was a very slow artist because of the intense amount of detail I put into my work. But guess what? Now I'm much faster. And it's because I was very, very careful in the beginning. And I had put myself up under absolute scrutiny to get it right. But every single time I did that, I learned something new. And the funny thing is that now, that is easy stuff. It's actually fun to just go through and do the best work possible in a much more acceptable amount of time. So everything that's hard to do now and slow to do now, know that it will become like walking at some point. Become as you won't think about it. It'll just happen, and it'll be
absolutely
smooth.
Yeah, your competency built confidence. You know, and it's like that with everything, every single thing that anyone you can think about, that it's second nature to you. You know, think about like driving. Driving is so overwhelming when you first start. And then eventually there's times where you're having a conversation when you're driving with someone, and you're at your destination, and you can't remember a whole hell of a lot of what happened on the road.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Because it's just like you're on autopilot in a way. You're just going. Let's say you're driving home, you know, and you can be so engrossed in a conversation and do perfect with your driving and everything else because it's second nature to you. You've done it so much.
Totally.
And the same thing happens when you're building up any skill. But you have to start.
And I want to say something as well to creators out there who are actually hiring artists. As I said at the beginning of the interview, the market is going to decide whether or not they buy your book, whether or not it's worth anything. So, yeah, there might be artists out there that can do work for you really, really cheaply and really, really quickly and really, really reliably. But if it doesn't look good, if it looks like trash, then people will not buy it. And it will be, as much as the investment on your end was small, it's not going to make anything. It's still going to be a waste of time. It's still going to be a waste of money. So if you need to save up a little more to get an extraordinary professional artist on board for your book, for your story, which you should care about if you're going to the trouble to put it out there, then so be it. You know, leave it a little longer. Save up your funds and or just invest in like 6 really amazing pages, launch the thing, get a bunch of money for it, and then invest it back into getting that artist to do a full book. Because we need better books out there. If we're sitting there wondering what happened to the comic book industry and why no one wants to read comic books anymore, it's because we dropped our standards. It's all about just getting it out there quick and fast. And the audience knew that. They're not silly, right?
Yeah, because above all else at this point, you're not just competing for dollars, for money. You're mostly competing for time. Time.
And attention.
People, you can't get time back. You can always make more money. But people are way more precious about how are they going to spend their time. And I don't mean just like, oh, they contributed and they backed your crowdfunder or whatever it is. They got your comic wherever. And do they read it? Do they talk about it? Are they into the story? Or are they just getting it to get it, show of support, and then that's it? There's a difference. Is the time investment there on their part? And if you're creating something that resonates with them, something that they enjoy, and say, I want to put my time into this, that's important. That's a game changer. Because there's lots of things in comics where, and I've done this too. You buy comics because you like that cover, or because you feel compelled to, because you're collecting that series. And did you read that issue? Probably not. And there's a lot of people out there that collect comics, and a lot of people out there that read comics. And there's a little bit in the mix of both. But to get a reader, to get someone who knows the story, the characters, what's going on, that is invaluable. There's nothing like it.
It's incredible. So they'll tell people about it, man. They'll tell their kids about it. They'll try to get the kids into it. Like, man, you bet when my daughter's old enough, I'm going to be telling her about Dragon Ball Z and getting her to read the manga and watch the TV show with me, because I love it. You know, that's how you want people to react to your comic books. You want them to get their friends into it. Say, hey, look at this, man. How sick is this?
Absolutely.
Right? Check out this artwork. The story is crazy. Like Corey, he recently got me to order him a manga that I'd seen before off of Amazon. Anyway, it rolled up to my doorstep because he doesn't have an Amazon Prime membership, so he gets me to order them for him. And I looked at this, I flipped through it, and I'm like, wow, this is sick. Like, this looks absolutely stunning. It was kind of a messed up manga, but the art was just gorgeous. And I was so excited just reading it. And it wasn't even my book. I didn't want to give it away to Corey after that. I'm like, man, damn, I wish I had have ordered the copy because it was the last copy that was available. But yeah, that's how you want people to experience your stuff. And, you know, they're not blind. They know what looks good. People know. They don't have to be artists to know what looks good.
Exactly.
They don't have to be writers to know what's well written and what's not well written. In the end, you're fashioning an experience for your audience, and there are many tools at our disposal that we can master in order to be able to do that very, very well. No matter what level you think you're at, know that you could be 10 levels above it. So keep on striving for greatness, because you never want to stop. You know, the only time at which you should stop improving is when you've decided not to draw anymore, or when you've decided not to write another word.
Or a higher power is like,
exactly.
Your time is done. You're on to the next wherever.
Yeah. Exactly. In which case, the art you have done will be immortalized, and it will never die. And if it's great art, it'll be enjoyed for many years to come, long after you're gone.
There you go. And with that, I think that's a perfect place to end this conversation. Clayton, thank you so much, man. Before you go, where can they find you?
You can find me at howtodrawcomics.net, How to Draw Comics on Twitter, at How to Draw Comics on YouTube, at How to Draw Comics on Facebook. We have a giant How to Draw Comics Facebook group, by the way. It's the biggest one on Facebook, so you'll be able to find it pretty easily. And, of course, inside the How to Draw Comics Academy, for those of you out there who want to get probably the best comic art education available online at this point in time. I don't think there's anyone... Like, I looked around. The reason that the How to Draw Comics Academy came about is because no one was offering it. Right? No one else was offering that level of service to people who really wanted to learn this stuff. I decided to get in there and fill the gap.
It's impressive and comprehensive, man. Seriously. Keep it up. I don't have to tell you that, though.
Thanks for having me on, Peter.
And yeah, it's always a joy. Always a pleasure talking to you, man. Seriously, one of my favorite people in comics to talk to. Clayton Barton, everybody. And we'll have one of these again down the line. And whether it's on Clayton's or my channel, we'll see. But we'll have another one. Everybody, thank you guys so much for being here. Clayton, thank you for being so generous with your time tonight and for the conversation as well. Seriously, man, always great talking to you. And I can't wait for our next one.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
All right, everybody, take it easy until we see each other again. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. All the best.